At graduation, I searched the crowd for my parents. They weren't there. They were at my brother's banquet. Years later, they came knocking. But I wasn't the same kid anymore. The sun was brutal that afternoon, blinding and sharp, bouncing off a sea of caps and gowns. My name was just called, and I was standing there on the stage, sweating through my polyester robe, holding a diploma that meant everything to me. I looked out over the crowd, scanning every row. I knew exactly where they were supposed to be, row C, left side, for seats in. My mom had said she got there early, said she was proud of me, but the seats were empty. I blinked a few times, thinking maybe I had the row wrong. Maybe they had stepped out. Maybe the heat got to them. But then my friend Jonah whispered, "Man, that sucks." He nodded toward his phone, showing me a picture his cousin just posted. There they were, my mom and dad. Big smiles, arm in arm next to a banner that read, Senior Athlete of the Year Banquet. Congratulations, Dylan. My brother. My younger brother. I stood there like a damn idiot, clutching my diploma, watching strangers hug their kids, toss flowers, take pictures. I just kept thinking, they chose him. Again. Not even a warning text. Not a call. Just gone. It was not the first time they had missed something important. But it was the moment I stopped expecting them to show up. Let me back up. My name is Aaron Wilkes, and I have always lived in the shadow of my brother, Dylan. Growing up, he was the kid with the golden arm and the perfect smile. Quarterback, prom king, scholarship offers by junior year. I was the quiet one. Honor roll, art club, chess team, none of it flashy. None of it loud enough to compete with a touchdown. I remember one time in middle school, I won this regional science fair. First place. I brought the medal home, all excited, and my mom looked up from the dinner table just long enough to say, "That's nice, honey. Dylan has a big game Friday. Maybe we can all go out afterward to celebrate." Celebrate what? His game? My win? That is how it always was. Dylan's birthday parties were events, balloons, bounce houses, themed cakes, neighbors packed into the house. Mine were usually just a sheet cake from the grocery store and maybe a card if someone remembered. I learned early not to expect much. But graduation day, that was different. That was supposed to be mine. My day. And still, they were not there. I did not cry. I just smiled for the camera, shook hands, and told everyone it was fine. And then I walked home. 37 blocks in that heavy robe, sweating, thinking about all the times I had been second place in a two-person race. That night, I packed a duffel bag and promised myself something. I will build a life that no one can ignore. And I did. But I never forgot that moment on the stage, staring out into a crowd where no one came for me. Because sometimes, the people who are supposed to love you the loudest are the quietest when it matters most. After graduation, I left town with a used laptop, $800 saved from summer jobs, and zero expectations from anyone back home. My parents never asked where I was going. Dylan probably assumed I would end up working retail somewhere nearby. He had just committed to a big-name college with a full ride for football. There was a party. My mom posted about it like he had cured a disease. I posted about my graduation. Got 3 likes, one from a cousin I barely knew. The thing is, when no one's watching, you learn to do things for yourself. I stopped chasing their approval the moment I stepped off that stage. I found a cheap apartment 2 towns over. Had to split it with 2 roommates and a family of mice, but it was mine. I enrolled in night classes at the community college, worked days at a warehouse hauling pallets, and breaking my back for minimum wage. I kept to myself. I got up early, stayed late. No one saw the grind, and that is exactly how I wanted it. Over time, I found a rhythm. I switched majors twice, finally landed in IT. Turned out I was good at breaking things down and making them work again. Machines made more sense than people ever did. They did not lie. They did not forget. Eventually, I picked up a contract job fixing network issues at a small firm downtown. It paid like crap, but I met someone there, my future boss, Darren, who said he liked my work ethic. He said, "You don't complain, and you don't act like you're owed something." That stuck with me. I never felt owed a damn thing. A few years later, I was helping lead his systems team. Still quiet. Still in the background. But finally, I was being noticed for what I brought to the table. I still did not talk to my parents much. The occasional birthday text from my mom. Always signed with love, mom and dad. Like my dad even knew how to open a phone. The last time I saw them in person before everything went sideways was at Dylan's engagement party. They invited me like it was an afterthought. I almost did not go, but something in me wanted to see if things had changed. Maybe now that I was doing well, maybe now they would see me. They didn't. They introduced me to guests as Dylan's brother. No name, no mention of my job, nothing. When Dylan gave his speech, he thanked his fiancée, his coaches, and even his dog. Not a single word about family. No mention of the guy who covered his part of the rent for 6 months when he dropped out of college sophomore year. Yeah, he dropped out. Bet my parents never told anyone that part. That night, I walked out before dessert. But life kept moving. Promotions came. Paychecks got bigger. I bought a house. Small but clean. Filled it with things that made me feel like I mattered, even if no one else noticed. And then the call came. It was my mom. I stared at the screen for a long time before I answered. Her voice sounded different. Not proud. Not cold. Just unsure. "Aaron," she said, "we need to talk." I leaned back in my chair, already knowing this was not going to be a casual chat. And I was right. I had not heard those words, "we need to talk," from my mom since I was 17, and she found a bottle of vodka hidden in my sock drawer. Back then, it was all about disappointment, about how I was smarter than that. This time, though, her voice was small. Not scolding. Not angry. Just nervous. I told her I had 5 minutes. She paused, like she did not know where to start. "It's Dylan," she finally said. "He's having a hard time." I waited, silent. She went on to explain, softly, like she was breaking bad news to a stranger, that Dylan had lost his job months ago. Some cushy sales gig a friend got him into. Turned out he had not hit a quota in over a year. Started drinking more. Arguing with his wife. There was even some talk of him gambling money they did not have. I blinked. The Dylan I knew was always smooth. Confident. Never wrong. I pictured him standing in the backyard that summer he threw a tantrum because he lost a basketball game at his own birthday party. My dad had gone out that night and bought him a new ball just to make him smile. Now that smile was apparently gone. "He's living with us again," my mom said. "Just until things settle." I almost laughed. That house had always been his house. His trophies still lined the shelves last I checked. His senior photos still hung over the fireplace. They used to joke that my space in the family album was just a sticky note with Aaron written on it. "So why are you calling me?" I asked. I already knew, but I wanted to hear it. She hesitated. "Well, your father is having health issues. And with Dylan struggling, we could really use some help." There it was. Help. Money. Stability. The very things I built from scratch without 1 damn ounce of support from them. Now, suddenly, I was the one they thought could save the day. I did not answer right away. Just listened to her breathing on the other end. Slow. Uneven. "Aaron," she said, "I know we haven't always been fair." Fair. That word hit me like a punch. Fair was a full crowd on Dylan's game nights and empty seats at my award ceremonies. Fair was a "sorry, we forgot," while they handmade signs for his track meets. And now, years later, they remembered my number because their golden boy cracked under the pressure. I said I would think about it. Hung up without saying goodbye. But it was already eating at me. Not because I felt guilty, but because part of me wanted to see them face to face. To look into their eyes and ask, "Where the hell were you when I needed help?" And that was the moment it started. The shift. The power they used to hold over me. It was slipping. They just didn't know it yet. A week later, I stood on their front porch. The same cracked steps I used to sit on when I was a kid, waiting for rides that sometimes never came. The house had not changed much. Still smelled like cheap candles and cooked cabbage. The porch light flickered overhead, and for a second, I almost turned around. But I rang the bell. My mom answered. Her eyes lit up like I was some long-lost hero coming back from war. She hugged me before I could stop her. It felt strange, forced, like she was trying to pull 20 years of absence into 5 seconds of contact. She pulled back, gave me this nervous smile, and said, "It means a lot that you came." Inside, the living room was dim. My dad was in his recliner, blanket over his knees, looking smaller than I remembered. He gave me a nod, like two strangers meeting at a bus stop. And then there was Dylan, slouched on the couch, unshaven, wearing a hoodie that still had a team logo on it from his high school days. He barely looked up. I sat down across from him. No one spoke at first, just the ticking of that old wall clock I used to hate as a kid. Then my mom started with the pleasantries. "You look healthy," she said. "Doing well, I hope?" I told her I was fine. That was all she was going to get. She glanced at Dylan. "Your brother's just been having a rough patch. You know how it is." I raised an eyebrow. You mean the patch that includes 2 maxed-out credit cards and a foreclosure notice? Dylan flinched. My dad looked annoyed, like I had said something inappropriate at church. That's not helpful, he muttered. But I was not here to play nice. I asked them why they called me now. Why after all this time, after every missed birthday and empty seat, I was suddenly part of the family again. My mom's voice cracked a little. Because we need you. And there it was, clear as day. Not we miss you, not we're sorry. Just we need you. I could feel something shift in me again. Not anger, not quite. More like a realization that I was holding the cards now. For the first time in my life, they were the ones waiting for approval. And I was not ready to give it. I stood up, told them I would think about what I could do, if anything. Told them I was not promising a thing. My mom tried to say something else, but I was already halfway to the door. As I stepped outside, I heard my dad cough behind me. At least come back for dinner sometime, he said. I did not turn around. I just said, we'll see. Because now, for the first time ever, I got to be the one who decided when to show up, or if I wanted to show up at all. A few days passed before I heard from them again. It was Dylan, surprisingly. He left me a voicemail, his voice slow, low, like he was trying to sound humble, but didn't quite know how. Hey man, I know I screwed up. A lot. But I was hoping maybe we could talk. Things are getting worse. I played it twice. Not out of sympathy. I just wanted to hear what a broken golden boy sounded like. For years, he had everything handed to him. Now here he was, suddenly trying to play the role of little brother who needed guidance. That same afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. From my mother. Inside was a note scribbled in her delicate, looping cursive. She talked about how hard it was watching Dylan fall apart. How my father's medical bills were piling up. How they were thinking about selling the house. How they were praying. Yes, she actually said praying. That I might consider helping them stay afloat, just long enough to get our feet under us again. Then came the line that hit me sideways. She wrote, "We know we failed you, but maybe this is your chance to do what we never did. Hold the family together." I sat with that line for a long time. Not because it moved me, but because of how twisted it was. My chance to do what they never did. Like this was a test of character. Like I was supposed to prove I was better than the way they raised me. But here is the thing no one remembers about the forgotten son, he never forgets. I still remember every missed game. Every time they left me behind. Every time I sat through Dylan's celebrations while mine were footnotes, if they happened at all. I remembered the one time I asked for help with a college application fee and my dad told me to be realistic. Meanwhile, they drained half their savings to send Dylan to a prep school just so he could play against better competition. But they did not remember those things. Because to them, none of it had ever mattered. So why now? Why turn to me? The answer was obvious. Because Dylan had run out of backup plans. Because their perfect image of family was crumbling. Because I was the only one who had built something steady. And now they were hoping I would step in, not as a son or a brother, but as a safety net. So I decided to go back one more time. Not to help. Not yet. But to remind them of the one thing they never gave me. A choice. And this time, I was going to take it. I showed up on a Sunday. My mom had cooked pot roast, one of the few things she actually did well. The smell hit me as soon as I walked in, thick with nostalgia I did not ask for. She smiled like I was 10 years old again, coming home from school. I just nodded and took a seat. Dylan was already at the table. Clean-shaven this time, wearing a button-up shirt he probably had not ironed. He barely met my eyes. My dad was coughing more than usual, thinner than I remembered, wrapped in that same old blanket like it was armor. They all waited for me to speak first. I cut straight to it. What exactly are you asking me to do? No one touched their food. My mom cleared her throat. We need help with the house payments. Just a few months until we figure things out. And Dylan? I asked. She glanced at him, then back at me. He just needs time. Maybe a job? I turned to Dylan. You asking me for a job now? He shifted in his seat. I'll take anything, man. He paused. I just need a fresh start. A fresh start. Like he had not already gotten a dozen of those. I looked at my dad. He had not said a word since I arrived. He finally muttered, family sticks together. No matter what. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I said, funny how that only seems to matter when I have something you need. The room went quiet again. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Thick. Neatly labeled. I slid it across the table to Dylan. He frowned, opened it, and started flipping through. Inside were copies of old bank transfers, screenshots of text messages, even the wire receipt from the time I bailed him out of a lease he walked away from in college. Over $7,000 over the years. Every cent I loaned or paid on his behalf, back when I had no business helping anyone, but still did it anyway. Dylan stared at the pages. My mom gasped. My dad looked pissed. I said, "That's the debt you forgot about. And I'm not talking about money." I stood up, looked each of them in the eye. All these years, I asked for nothing. I built my life from scraps, while you cheered for him and forgot I existed. And now? Now I am supposed to carry all of you? Again? My voice was calm, but it shook the room. Dylan closed the folder slowly. His hands were shaking. "We were kids," he said quietly. I nodded. "Yeah, we were." Then I looked at my dad. "What happened to be realistic? You said that to me when I wanted more than a trade school. You laughed when I said I wanted to build something. You told me I did not have the guts." He did not deny it. He just said, "People change." And I replied, "So do power dynamics." I turned to leave, but my mom stopped me with one sentence. "Please, Aaron. If you walk away, we lose everything." I paused with my hand on the doorknob, and I said, "Then maybe you should have taught him how to stand on his own." I thought that would be it. Thought I would walk out, leave behind the guilt they tried to shove in my pockets, and be done with it. But Dylan called me the next morning. No apology, no small talk, just anger. "You think you're better than me now?" he said. "Just because you made some money and moved out?" I let the silence do the talking. He kept going. "All those years, you sat there judging me, acting like you were some martyr. But you were always jealous. You hated that they loved me more." I did not answer that, because he was not wrong. I had hated it, but I had not let it ruin me. He went on. "You think you earned everything yourself? That is a joke. You were handed just as much. You just pretended like being ignored made you some kind of saint." That one hit. Because yeah, maybe I had turned being the forgotten one into a badge of honor. Maybe I wore that pain like armor and used it to justify walking away from everyone, even the good people in my life. But that did not change what they did. What he did. So I told him, "You're right. I hated you for a long time. But you know what I never did? Expect you to save me." He was quiet for a second. Then he said something that nearly stopped me cold. "Dad's not going to make it through the year. The doctor said his heart's failing." I froze. That man had given me nothing but silence and hard stares my whole life. But still, hearing it like that, it shook something loose. Then Dylan added, "You want regrets? Keep doing what you're doing." And hung up. I stared at my phone like it had punched me in the chest. For a second, I wanted to call him back. To ask if it was true. To say maybe we could talk like brothers for once in our lives. But I didn't. Instead, I went to work. Sat at my desk. Stared at the photos on my bookshelf. All of them were of people who chose to be in my life. Friends. Colleagues. Even my old college professor who helped me get my first job. Not one family photo. That was the moment I knew the truth. The people who raised me built a house I was never meant to belong in. And now that it was burning down, they wanted me to run in and save it. But I had already built my own home. Brick by brick. Without them, the guilt Dylan tried to throw at me, it didn't stick. Because maybe he was right about one thing. I had been jealous. But I had turned that jealousy into something real. And he had turned everything he was given into ashes. I thought that was the end of it. I thought Dylan's guilt trip was the last card they had to play. But a few nights later, I got a call from someone I had not spoken to in over a decade. My aunt, my mom's sister. I almost did not pick up. Thought maybe it was another guilt relay, some new tactic. But curiosity got the better of me. Her voice was calm, like she had been waiting years for this conversation. "I heard what happened," she said. "About the family. About Dylan." I said nothing. Just waited. Then she said something I never thought I would hear. "I'm sorry." I leaned back in my chair, caught off guard. Not just by the apology, but by the fact that it sounded real. She told me she had seen it all, back then. The way they doted on Dylan. The way they ignored me. She said she tried to speak up once when I was little, asked my mom why I always sat alone at family gatherings while Dylan got passed around like a trophy. My mom told her I preferred solitude. That was their explanation. She rewrote the story so she wouldn't feel guilty, my aunt said. And over time, we all just let it happen. She went quiet for a moment. "I know this doesn't fix anything, but I needed you to know that it wasn't your imagination. You weren't crazy. You weren't making it up." It hit me harder than I expected. I had spent so long convincing myself that none of it mattered anymore, that I had made peace with it, that I did not need validation. But hearing someone else finally say it out loud, that cracked something open. Then came the twist. She told me she had spoken to Dylan, too. He's scared, Aaron. And not just about your dad. He's scared because he doesn't know who he is without the spotlight, without the praise. And now that it's gone, he's drowning. I stayed quiet. She continued, I'm not asking you to fix it, but I am asking you to think about one thing. What's that? I asked. Whether walking away will really set you free, or just keep you locked in a different kind of cage. I thanked her for calling, and we hung up. But her words stayed with me. All night, they looped in my head. I had spent my whole life trying to get away from that family. From the pain, the favoritism, the rejection. And I had made it. I really had. I had my own place, my own peace. But the cage she talked about? It was real. It was built from the bitterness I carried. The quiet rage. The part of me that still needed to win by not needing them. And now, for the first time, I was not sure if that was winning at all. The next weekend, I drove back. Not because they deserved it, but because I needed to face it. All of it. The house looked smaller now. Not physically, just stripped of whatever power it used to hold over me. Inside, it was quiet. My dad was in the kitchen, thinner than ever, hooked to a portable oxygen tank. He looked at me like he half expected I was a ghost. Dylan stood by the hallway. No hoodie this time. Just a plain t-shirt and sweatpants. He looked like someone who had been trying to sleep off a storm for weeks. My mom was at the sink. She turned when she heard the door, her face hopeful, but tired. I stepped into the living room and motioned for everyone to sit. I came, I said, but not for the reasons you think. My dad opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. No speeches. Just listen. I pulled a chair out and sat across from them. For most of my life, I waited for you to see me. Really see me. Not as Dylan's brother. Not as the backup plan. Just me. They said nothing. Just stared. And every time you had the chance to show up for me, you didn't. I turned to Dylan. You had the world handed to you. All I ever had was a front row seat to your spotlight. He looked down. I took a breath. But here's the part you never expected. I made it. Without your support. Without your guidance. Without your belief. My voice cracked a little, but I held it steady. I came back today to tell you one thing. I stood up and looked at each of them. I forgive you. Not because they deserved it, but because I was done carrying them with me. I forgive you. I said again, but I don't owe you. My mom started to speak, but I raised a hand. This time, the choice is mine. I reached into my coat and pulled out a check. I set it on the table. It covered 2 months of mortgage, nothing more. Just enough for them to breathe, but not depend on me. My dad stared at it like it was poison. This isn't a rescue, I said. It's a gesture. I turned to Dylan. If you want to fix your life, start by doing what I did. Alone. His eyes were glassy, but he nodded. I walked to the door. Paused. Then I said something I never thought I would. I hope you all find peace. But I'm done begging for a seat at this table. And I walked out. This time, no one stopped me. And for the first time in my life, I did not look back. It has been 8 months since that night. They never called again. Not once. No messages. No surprise visits. No half-hearted attempts to check in. And for the first time, I was okay with that. The house I used to dream about escaping? It still exists somewhere out there. Same creaky steps, same broken blinds, probably still pretending to be something it never was. But I do not carry it with me anymore. It does not live rent-free in my head. My life now? It is quiet. Purposeful. I wake up in a place I paid for with my own work. No family money. No shortcuts. Just years of grit stacked into something solid. I have a job I love. Friends who show up when it matters. A partner who actually listens. Who sees me without needing to be reminded. And most of all, I have peace. I used to think closure meant some big moment, some emotional apology, a tearful reunion, someone finally saying, "You were right. We were wrong." But the truth? Closure is not a performance. It is a decision. I decided I did not need their applause. I did not need them to circle back and tell me I mattered. I already knew. I look back now and I see it clearly. The years I spent shrinking myself, the way I tiptoed around their comfort, how I let their silence shape the way I saw my worth. But not anymore. I chose to help that night not because I owed them, but because I wanted to prove to myself that I could be generous without being taken. I chose to walk away because staying would have been another form of begging. And I am done begging. Dylan may or may not figure his life out. My parents may or may not realize what they lost. But that is no longer my business. My story is not about being forgotten anymore. It is about remembering myself. And if they ever do call again, well, answering or not, that will be my choice.